book of Genesis, chapter 22. We'll start in verse 1. It says, "Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, 'Abraham.' 'Here am I,' he replied. Then God said, 'Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about.' Early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, 'Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you.' Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac. And he himself carried the fire and the knife, and the 2 of them went on together. Isaac spoke up and said to his father, and Abraham said, 'Yes, my son.' 'The fire and wood are here,' Isaac said, 'but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?' Abraham answered, 'God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son.' And the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place that God had told them about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, 'Abraham, Abraham.' 'Here am I,' he replied. 'Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now that I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your only son, your only son.' Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its thorns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son." Think about that this morning. Just 2 chapters earlier in the book of Genesis, God promised Abraham that his son Isaac through him would be a great nation that would number more numerous than the stars. In the book of Hebrews, the writer said, "By faith Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had received the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, 'It is through Isaac your offspring will be reckoned.' Abraham reasoned that God could raise the dead, and figuratively speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death." In a parallel manner, if you take God gave up his one and only son for each one of us. Paul compares it in the book of Ephesians as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. And then if you go back to Isaiah chapter 53, it says it was the Lord's will to crush him and to cause him to suffer. The Lord wasn't pleased in seeing that his servant suffer, as you can read in Matthew 27 and 46, but in providing a sacrifice that was adequate in the redemption of man. His delight was in the achievement of the servant, that he would prosper in his hand. This was the cost of salvation. Let us remember that when Jesus was on the cross, God didn't say stop. He went ahead with that sacrifice to make an atonement and a pure propitiation for our sins.